Hello, everyone. We are hopefully live across Get Moving Cambridge, Facebook, and YouTube. So, hopefully, people are joining us for our goal setting workshop, which is my pleasure to welcome Rachel Thomason today from Rachel Thomason Wellbeing to take us through this goal setting workshop. Rachel, do you want to start by just introducing a little bit about yourself and the work that you do through your Rachel Thomason Wellbeing practice?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Danny. And thank you so much for having me for this workshop. To be honest, it's just a pleasure to be asked, and I love delivering this sort of thing. So, yeah, my name's Rachel, and I am a qualified coach and yoga teacher. And I deliver mindfulness and wellbeing sessions to organisations as well. So that's kind of what brings me here today, specifically to talk about the goal setting. I set up Rachel Thomason Wellbeing in January 2020, which is fair to say that wasn't the best year to set things up.
Or the best year, you could
Yeah,
take it the other way.
but within going online within kind of the 3 months and things, but it's gone really well, and I'm just really enjoying kind of doing this sort of things and really helping people to achieve what they want to achieve in life. So yeah, that's kind of
Fantastic.
where I'm coming from.
And obviously, goals it's a big topic for everyone come the new year with the I guess the pressure to set New Year's resolutions and then hopefully try and stick to them. But you're going to take us through a bit of a workshop of how people can, I guess, set themselves realistic goals that they and then set themselves up for success. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you've summarized that perfectly. I think we'll start off just looking a little bit at New Year's resolutions, actually, because I think that's quite a good base to start from. Obviously, it's the 6th of January. It's kind of perfect timing and why we're here. And then I've sort of split it into 3 sections, I guess. So I've got the what of goal setting. So what are your goals? And then looking at how we can set them, like the sort of how we might write them, for example. And then the middle section is going to be on why. So looking a little bit around motivation there, and then moving into the final section, which is on how. And that's going to really be about achieving them and setting you up for success. So, yes.
Lovely, Rachel. Well, I'm going to leave you to it. I'm going to be here in the background. So just let me know if you need me.
Perfect. Thanks, Danny. So, yeah, we've got around half an hour together today. So, bear with me. I really hope that you enjoy this. And as I say, we've got these 3 sections to go through for this session. I am assured that this is going to be available afterwards. So if you do have to nip off or whatever, you can watch it afterwards as well. So I think a good place to start then is with this New Year's resolutions thing. So I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with New Year's resolutions. I won't lie to you. I think January is a fantastic time and a great excuse to start fresh, to set yourself new challenges, try something new. It's just a really good kind of fresh pace to do that on. But increasingly, whether it's because I'm getting older or what, I don't know. But increasingly, I've noticed over the last few years that there is, Danny used the word pressure, and that is a perfect way to describe it. There is a pressure and expectation around New Year's resolutions, which isn't always that positive. And I basically want to start today's session with a bit of a baseline. And my philosophy around New Year's resolutions or any type of goal is that we start from a base of being good enough. So we are individuals, we are completely unique, and we don't need a new year to become a new version of ourselves or a better version of ourselves. If we start from a more positive perspective that actually we're great already as we are, and anything we can do to help achieve our goals or our dreams is going to be great, and we're more than capable of doing that, we put a really different positive perspective on our goal setting. So I think, new year, new you. Yes, that's great. New year, great to kind of turn over a new leaf and things, but you're just the same you that you were, and you're brilliant. So start from there, and we can kind of do everything that we're going to do through this session to really set us up for success. So Danny, I've just got an error message pop up on the screen. I'm assuming I'm still live, so I'm going to roll with this. Cool. So what I want to say then around this is, yes, it's January. Yes, we're doing this in January, but any of these principles throughout this session can be applied at any time. Okay. So if in 6 months' time you think that you're ready to try a new goal, you want to set a new goal for yourself, these will be just as valid then as they are now. So let's jump into the first bit. So our first section is what. And just following on from this kind of New Year's resolution thing, I think New Year's resolutions are really, generally speaking, kind of very open statements, usually a little bit vague. They might be kind of huge transformations. So we often hear things around, oh, I'm going to get healthier this year. I'm going to get fitter this year. I'm going to improve my well-being this year. And these are really big, chunky things to deal with, right? They're amazing intentions, but they're big changes in your life. And I was getting ready for the session, and I just had a bit of a Google around statistics achieving New Year's resolutions. And I'm not going to claim that they're super realistic, because I don't know how reliable they are. To be honest, it's quite a hard thing to measure. But I found reports that were saying things like, oh, 80% of people fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions. And there was another report that said 8% of the people who do set resolutions actually achieve them. So really kind of fairly depressing numbers, to be honest, around achieving New Year's resolutions. And part of this is around the way we set them. So when we make these really big statements, these kind of quite wide ranging, they're very broad statements, actually we're not setting ourselves up in a way that is necessarily going to help us achieve them. So our brains fundamentally like easy things. Okay, so that is when you get up in the morning, start your morning routine, make your coffee, everything else, you're probably on some sort of autopilot. And our brains love that. They love easy things. When we have to work harder and use more energy, our brains are a little bit less hesitant. More hesitant, sorry, I would say. So for example, if you are setting a New Year's resolution to improve your well-being, your overall well-being, our brains are going to kind of be like a rabbit in headlights. Okay, that's going to be a huge thing for us to tackle. And oh my goodness, where do we start? And that's such a huge change. I'm just going to go back to having my morning coffee. Okay, so there's that side of things. And the other side of things is kind of what I said at the beginning. So often New Year's resolutions, there's this external pressure, external expectation to be better. And if we're starting from sort of a negative point where we don't feel good enough to begin with, we're unlikely to have the motivation to do such a huge change to our life. So there's a couple of reasons why New Year's resolutions might not have succeeded for you in the past. I'm not by any means saying that this is a kind of blanket statement. I know some people will have achieved resolutions, and I'd love to hear from you actually if you have achieved such a kind of a resolution like the ones I've suggested. But I think for certainly personally speaking, there have been many times when I've set resolutions in that sort of language that just hasn't succeeded. And similarly, I've known friends and family who have definitely had downfalls with some of their resolutions. So you're not alone, first of all. Right? This is a difficult thing when we set them in the way that we do. So how do we set resolutions? And I'm going to call them goals from now on, because they don't necessarily have to be in January. How can we set goals that mean we are going to succeed? How can we make changes to our lives that we want to in a way that's actually we're going to follow through? And there are two models, I guess, two ways in which I'm going to suggest to you that you might want to frame your goals in future. So first of all, we're just going to look at kind of the I guess the way that you would write or say your goal, and the actual setting of it to begin with. And then we will look a little bit deeper and unpick that. So the first thing we're going to look at, Danny, I think you've got a slide for me on SMART goals. We're going to pop up this slide. Look at that. It's like magic. So most of you, or at least some of you, will have heard of SMART goals. So these are sometimes used in the workplace. And SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So there is a example right there on the screen. I will run a 5-kilometer race in 3 months' time, or by whatever date it might be. So this instead of, for example, saying, my New Year's resolution is to get fitter. If you apply SMART to that, I'm going to break this down for you. So basically, rather than I want to get fitter, for example, you might say, I will run. So your S specific is going to be you're going to run. Now, that could be that you're going to dance, you're going to walk, you're going to fly, I don't know. You're going to get specific on what it is that you're going to do, the action. The second one is measurable. So when we think about measurable in these SMART goals, the M, we are thinking about, how do I know if I've succeeded this goal? So measurable, in this case, I've put in race. So sorry, we're on number 2. So M, measurable, we're going to race. So you know when you've completed a race. So that's our kind of measurement. And there are also, the 5 kilometers is a measurement, 3 months' time is a measurement. And then we look at achievable. So A for achievable, and the achievable in this sense is, so achievable and realistic are a little bit interchangeable, but achievable goes in, I guess, as well in tandem with the distance and the time frame that you're putting on it. But I've put in 5 kilometers here, because 5 kilometers for somebody who maybe hasn't started running before is a lot more achievable than saying, I'm going to run 26 miles. So that's your achievable part. And then we move on to realistic. And I'm going to pause at realistic. I'm going to skip to time bound very quickly. So time bound is you're putting a deadline on yourself, right? Because if you just have an open-ended goal, when are you likely to start it? And I know from experience, my personal experience, is I just let that goal roll on and never actually get around to doing it. Whereas in this example, I might actually put a specific date there. So I might say by the 1st of June 2022, because then it encourages me to actually get started on it now. And that brings me back to realistic, so the R. So if I was saying I will run a 5 kilometer race by tomorrow, that's a lot less realistic than putting a sort of time frame on it that's going to work for you. So that is a little bit of a breakdown there of SMART goals. And I've chosen running just because it's quite a good one to kind of do an example on. You could do this for if you wanted to kind of increase your well-being, your sense of well-being. You might want to, I don't know, write in your journal once a day or something like that. Read a book once a day. So you can kind of tweak this in whatever suits your goal, but it's breaking it down into those particular areas that help you A, get started, and B, hopefully finish it. Okay, so one more thing to say on that. At the moment, we've looked at this in terms of your very general I want to get fitter goal, breaking it down into your 5 kilometer goal, something a bit more specific. You can also break that goal on the screen down even more using SMART goals. So if you know you want to run a 5 kilometer race in 3 months' time, you might break that down. For example, say in 1 month's time, I want to have run 2.5K without stopping. In 1 week, I'm going to go running twice a week, 1 kilometer at a time, for example, to achieve that. I'm not a running coach, so I'm not sure. But if what you want to be doing is you can almost get down to the day, especially for things like if you want to read something that's maybe not fitness related, something that you can do without depleting your body's energy too much. So when you start at this really huge level, you maybe come down to a more specific goal. And then within that, you can even section off to make it just a little bit more bite-sized and manageable. So that is your SMART goals. So Hannah Dykes just put, what is more important when setting goals, motivation or dedication? That's a great question. And I think I'm going to address that actually in our why section in a little while, Hannah. So SMART goals. So they will appeal to some people. And I also just want to grab up the next slide, Danny, on PACT goals. Now, PACT goals are something I came across. There we go. Lovely. Thank you. PACT goals are something I came across a few months ago and totally new to me. And I'm not sure that many people necessarily know about them, but I think they're a lovely alternative to SMART goals, especially, Hannah, thinking of motivation, especially when it comes to your why. And we're going to go much more into this in a little bit. But I just wanted to introduce this as a framework on how you might want to make your goal. So again, you can see on screen, I've taken a very similar example. So if your kind of general goal is to get fitter, you might decide that it's running. And the crucial bit here is around purpose. So it's why you're doing something. And this is why I like the packed goal. So there's two key things in packed goal setting. One of them is that it's purposeful, so you can see from the P. And the other one is that it's sustainable. So packed goals encourage you to create sustainable change so that it's not just something that you have done by the end of the month and you never do again. But if it's something that you want to make a long-lasting change to your life, then this way of doing it is quite useful. So let's just have a little look at this and break it down in a similar way. So we've got purpose. So the purpose here is that you want to get fitter or you want to run more so that you have more energy with your family, for example. It might be any number of things, again, which we're going to come to. But that is, you're starting with the reason why. And then again, another key thing about packed is that you want to make it actionable almost straight away. So I've put in here that you're going to run twice every week. So that is kind of your action. So you know that if you set this goal to start tomorrow, you're going to start running twice a week. And then we get to continuous. And continuous is all about this sustainability that I was talking about. So continuous is something that, yes, it's going to continue, it's going to keep going. And that's where we've got the every week in there. So it's going to be something that you do it this week, but then you're going to do it again next week. So it's an ongoing thing. And then finally, trackable. And your trackable is similar to your measurement, in SMART. It's the question that you ask yourself: have I achieved this goal? Yes or no? So trackable, if you have run twice every week, then you're going to be able to tick that off. Cool. Lovely. So Danny, you can pop that down now if that's okay. So there are two methods, if you like.
Can I jump in with a question, Rachel? I'm sorry, I'm really
Yeah, go for it.
so I've not heard of the packed kind of format before. I've heard of SMART, but I've not heard of packed. And I wonder, when it comes with SMART, you've got a clear date when you're potentially going to have finished your goal or achieved it. With the
Yes.
packed methodology, how how kind of often or how frequently are you coming back to that goal to like review it? Because obviously with fitness, if somebody achieves this and does get a bit fitter, do they get to a point where they potentially need a new goal?
Yes. You have just beautifully led into my next point. So that is one of the, so I would suggest, if SMART appeals to you, go with SMART if you have a specific deadline you want to meet. And if you know you work well with deadlines, SMART is probably great. And that's not saying that you can't set a deadline with PACT, not at all. But PACT is kind of looking at making those kind of longer term changes that are going to last. And in answer to Danny's question, absolutely right. Like either of these goals, so whether you form your goal to be SMART or PACT, either of them can be reviewed at any point. So if you find that actually you've been running twice a week for, I don't know, a month and a half, and actually you're finding that quite easy and you're starting to get a bit bored and that doesn't really feel like a challenge for you anymore, then yeah, like review that goal, go for 3 times a week or challenge yourself and maybe even do 4. I would definitely, with all of these, really tune into how it's feeling. And we'll look at this in the next section as well, and our kind of why, because how you are, thanks, Danny, how you feel around your goal is quite a good indicator on whether you need to reframe it, whether you need to rewrite it, whether you need to review it. Oh, just came up with 3 R's there, didn't I? Reframe, review, or rewrite. So yeah, I don't think there's any fixed, in answer to your question, Danny, I don't think there's any fixed kind of period of time that you need to review your goals. There might be for some specific sport ones, for example, if you're following a particular regime. But I think if you're, for example, if you're setting well-being goals and you're starting to feel better about things, or maybe you're not feeling better about things, you can tweak your goals accordingly. Cool. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will move on to our why section. Hannah, I might just address your question quickly because that's a great question. What is more important when setting goals, motivation or dedication? I'm going to sit on, am I going to sit on the fence? I want to say, so it is going to be a bit of both. And for the examples that actually I'm going to go into now, I think motivation is going to be stronger. You can be a really dedicated person, but you also need to be motivated, I think, because if you this is one of the examples I was going to use. So if you set, running's a really easy thing to do examples with, which is why I keep returning back to it. But if you get up one day, you're meant to go for your run and it is like horrible outside, it's raining, it is windy, it's like really, really awful day, and you hear it against the window and you're like, mm-mm. You can be the most dedicated person in the world and possibly still not get out. But if you have an internal motivation, which again, I'm going to go on to this, if you have an internal motivation around it and there's a really passionate feeling why you want to do it, I think you're more likely to go. I'm willing to be challenged on that. That's just my kind of answer off the top of my head. Okay, so just bear with me. I'm just going to have a quick drink and then we will move on to this why bit. So we've covered the what, so what your goal might look like, how you might create your goal. And then we're going to look at the why. So once you've got your goal, or at least an idea of your goal, so exactly what Hannah's put, one of the key things in getting this goal achieved or being successful with it is going to be motivation, basically. It's going to be your magic key, your magic wand. And if you haven't, or if you have previously not achieved goals, then I encourage you to think a little bit about some of the things that I'm going to suggest in this section. Motivation, particularly when we're doing hard things, which usually when we're setting goals, they are hard to an extent. It might be a small extent or it might be a big one, but we are making change and we are therefore changing our daily habits, which, going back to what our brains like to do, we like to do easy things that don't take up a lot of energy. So when we do make any change, it's going to be a little bit hard to do it. So when you've got your goal, the first thing I would ask you is to just maybe say it a couple of times, maybe write it down, get a feel for how you feel about your goal. Now, I know that sounds a bit strange, but if you have, for example, set a goal around, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week to get stronger. And if you're sort of writing that down and you're thinking about it and you're thinking, oh my God, but I really hate the gym. Like I'm going because my partner's going, like I really, really don't want to do this. Your chances of succeeding at that goal are going to be a lot slimmer than if you're like, oh my God, but I love dancing. I'm definitely going to go to that dance class because I love music, I love dancing. It's a chance I get to spend with other people, meet new people. The energy and the positivity around that goal and succeeding that goal are going to be very different to your like, oh God, I really don't want to go to the gym. So start to just think and notice how you feel about a goal. And that brings me to the next question to ask, which is why, well, kind of a little bit of both. So why are you setting your goal? Or why is it important to you? And if you kind of don't really have a strong feeling around that, you don't really know why you're setting it, you don't know why it's important, or your answer is something like, well, my friend's doing it, so I feel like I should too. Again, I'm going to bring you back to the kind of the positivity and the energy around that. So you want to be doing something that you want to do. Okay, that's the simplest way I can put it, because you can do things for other people and that can motivate you absolutely. But I think if you are having to get up on that horrible day and go running, if your motivation is, I don't know, something like we've had on the example earlier, like, you know, you want to get fitter to spend more time with your family, and actually it's a really nice way to spend 30 minutes to yourself in the morning, then that's going to feel much better than if you wake up going, oh God, I hate running. I'm only doing this because my friend does it. So I've been there, trust me. So yeah, just being really mindful of how you feel about your goals and the way you're thinking about them. And actually, we will come to a little bit on the way we think about them in the next section as well. And the other reason why this is important is, thinking about that horrible weather outside, you've got to go out running. There is going to be a point when probably, unless you're kind of unless you kind of got into a routine already with your goal and you've achieved it, there are going to be times when things get difficult, because they are, like, we're human. It's not always going to be easy to do something new. And those times are when you need to draw upon that motivation. So when it means something to you and something like you're really passionate about something, you really enjoy it, you're really energized by it, that's going to help you achieve it more than any sort of resentment or like reluctance or negativity around it. And then the final thing to mention, which is a bit more physiological, is behind the kind of levels of fulfillment. So thinking about this kind of breaking goals down as we did before, you've got your overarching goal and then your little mini bits that make up that goal. So you might be, for example, aiming to go for a 1 kilometer run twice a week. And then in your month, you'll go up to 2.5 kilometers. So those things are really a great way to keep us motivated, because every time we achieve one of those little things, it keeps us, it's like a snowball. Okay, this is the best way I can think to describe it. Our motivation is going to snowball until you achieve the next thing, and it's going to propel you forward. And that's because a little chemical in our brains, a hormone called dopamine, is our like achievement hormone. So whenever we achieve something, our reward system kicks in, dopamine comes up and says hello, and it makes us feel really good. It makes us feel great about ourselves. So if we care about something and something means a lot to us, then our motivation is going to keep kind of snowballing. So we're going to get that dopamine hit because we really care about what we've just done, and we're going to do it again and again and again until you've achieved your goal. So I hope that makes some sense. So that's why thinking about your why is quite important. And this is something that's changed for me a lot. And because I used to, if I'm honest, I used to set a lot of goals because I felt like it was something I should do rather than something I wanted to do. And that's some of the things we're going to look at. But that particularly was around me stepping back and going, yeah, but am I doing this for me? Or is it just something I feel like I should do? And you'd be surprised at how much more you can kind of push forward to achieve your goal that way. Cool. So again, any questions, feel free to just pop them. Rachel, nice name. I've just seen that you've popped up. So, hey, Danny, I'm just going to take a sip again.
Sure. I'll read Rachel's question out actually while you're just grabbing a drink. So thanks, Rachel, for your question. She says, I have a chronic health condition, which means energy and pain have an unpredictable effect on how I can move. Setting a goal seems almost impossible because my condition varies so much. Is there a way of goal setting that fits in with this?
Yeah, Rachel, that's a great point, actually. So I think the first thing to say for this is be compassionate. So this almost, it kind of goes back a little bit to what I was saying. January isn't the only time to set goals, right? Just because it's January, that might not be the right time for you. You might have all sorts of, we have lives, so we have lots of things going on that mean sometimes it's not right for us to set the really ambitious goals. So Rachel, the one thing I'd say is be completely compassionate with yourself, because if you set yourself a goal and you don't achieve it, that's completely fine. Just, I think there's a real sense of taking the pressure off yourself as well. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, maybe there's a way you could be flexible with it. So if you're finding that actually the time frame that you set for yourself is the thing that's restricting you, then maybe try and lift the time frame. And do you know what? It takes as long as it takes for you to kind of tick the goal off. I guess the other thing is, so thinking about the variability. So if you do want the time frame in place, but maybe not the intensity of the goal. So I don't know what sort of thing you're thinking of, but maybe just try a little baby step and allow that to feel really great when you achieve it. So I think just off the top of my head, I think, yeah, definitely looking at those kind of variable things and taking the pressure off yourself, because you're only human. You're capable of doing what you're doing. So any little thing is going to be, look, again, we're going to come to that, actually. Celebrate those little things, and just make it work for you. So I hope that helps. Cool. So let me take a deep breath. And we're going to go, we're coming up to the sort of half-hour mark. So I'm just going to go into the how. So this is like the really good stuff. So if you've been doing all this up until now and you're like, yeah, but Rachel, I'm still not achieving my goal, then I'm going to give you some really good little takeaway points to think about. So you're welcome. So Lisa, I will come back to that in a moment. Thank you for your question. So actually, Lisa, you're going to get a great example for that. So the first tool of thinking about how are you going to successfully achieve your goal. Firstly, we talked about this a little bit, break it down. So I went to a training once and they made this really random, but it stuck with me, a great metaphor of how to deal with big problems or big goals. And they described, so the idea is you have this big goal and it feels like an elephant. But the way you deal with it is by eating the little shrimps. So you break it down into little tiny pieces, and that's how we end up making the goal or getting the job done. So we were talking about the running example earlier. So you want to run 5K, but actually that still feels like huge to do in 3 months. So you're going to break it down to, what am I going to do in each month? And then what am I going to do in each week? That's as an example. Another example might be, again, improving my well-being or getting some more time to myself. Well, then what are we going to do? Right, each month I'm going to read a book. Okay, well, how am I going to do that? Well, each week I'm going to make sure I've read, let me get the calculations right, 70 pages. And each day I'm going to read 10 pages. So you can break them down like that. And then, you've got these kind of weekly, daily targets that are really easy to kind of check off. And we come right back to our little dopamine hormone. Every time you're able to tick one of those off, you're feeling like, oh, that's really good. And it encourages you to do more. Okay, so the next thing, which is arguably one of the biggest, which you've probably heard of, is accountability. And accountability is proven. It's one of the most proven things to help you get goals, to help you succeed at goals. And accountability basically is you being responsible for achieving your goal. But key people in your life can really help you with this. So if you trust somebody, it might be a family member, a partner, or a friend, ask them, well, you can do one of three things actually. Share your goal with them, and you can ask them to check in with you. So you can just simply say, do you know what? I know by this date I've got to do something. Can you ask me the day before if I've done it? The second thing is you can just simply ask them to support you. So when you are low on motivation, and it's not enough to come back to your why, maybe you've thought about why you're achieving your goal and it's still not enough, ask your accountable person. So just go to them, say, look, I'm really struggling today. I'm trying to work towards this goal. What can I do? And hopefully the kind of teamwork and encouragement there will help you step forward. And then the third thing that you can do is do it with someone. Now, some people absolutely love doing this. Some people much prefer to go it alone. So it's totally up to you. But having somebody that you do something with, you're showing up for each other, you're not letting each other down. There's a lot to be said for doing goals together. And I think I read an article actually about doing things with your partner, which, sorry, Simon, I'm not sure about that in some circumstances. But if you just kind of gel really well, then yeah, absolutely, that's a great way to do it as well. Okay, and then we come back to this. So the third tool, so we've got break it down, accountability. The third tool is celebrate. And this is all linked to, oh, thank you, Danny. Yeah, I do have this slide. So celebrate. It comes back to this dopamine. Like, our brains are chemically wired to like things when we achieve them. So if you achieve something, that little chemical is going to flip on, and you're going to feel really good about it. And it doesn't have to be your goal, okay? It doesn't have to be, I've completed my goal, I get to do X, Y, Z, or, I feel great. Any tiny thing that goes towards your goal, please celebrate it, okay? I was pretty rubbish with this, to be honest, for a long time. But if you allow yourself just a minute, 30 seconds of feeling great, that you got out for even just 2 minutes running, then you're going to feel the rewards of that, because rather than beating yourself up, you're going to keep that motivation to keep going in the future. Okay, so taking that snowball effect forward, basically. Just give me a second while I'm just going to reread Lisa's question a little bit. So let's go back to Hannah's question. What can you do? Thank you, Danny. What can you do in those moments when you neither feel dedicated nor motivated? Great example. When chocolate or wine seems much more attractive than achieving your goal of weight loss. Okay. This is my fourth tool, okay? So this is called friction. And the psychologist, Wendy Wood, actually talks about this. If anybody's interested, it's on Hidden Brains, the podcast, okay? And this was just like a little light bulb for me. So I want to share this with you. And when I was talking about our brains wanting to do easy things, okay? So if you are used to going into the kitchen and grabbing chocolate or wine, that's what your brain is going to want to do, okay? It's incredibly difficult to tell your brain, no, I'm not going to reach for that today. I'm going to reach for the apple instead, okay? You also have to want to enjoy the apple. So one of the things that you can do is called friction, and you can add or remove friction depending on what you want to do. So Lisa, you're talking about chocolate or wine seeming more attractive than achieving your goal of weight loss. If your goal of weight loss, if you figured out your why, if it's super important to you, then remove it. So you want to add friction where there's chocolate or wine in the way, yeah? So for example, so you basically want to make it harder. So let's phrase it like that. You want to make it harder to eat the chocolate or wine. And so I've heard of people kind of putting things on, like little Post-its on your cupboards to say like a different suggestion on what to have, for example. So the friction you want to add is something that makes it harder to make your choice. Okay, because I have a little bit of evening chocolate, and I think if I didn't have that, it would actually be very difficult, because that's become a habit for me right now. So I have to think of ways that I can put friction, something that's going to make me think before I grab the chocolate. So the Post-it note is quite a nice one to just say, I don't know, you might just want to say like apple or whatever you want to eat instead, or not eat. And I think the thing around that is anything that's going to make your brain stop. So rather than your usual habit, you're walking towards the cupboard, you're opening the cupboard, it's anything that's going to be different, and your brain is suddenly going to go, oh, hang on, do I really want that? Because the way habits are, they're like autopilot things. They're things we do every day, and we just kind of get on with it. Whereas if we stick something in the way, if we put a bit of friction in the way, our brains are suddenly going to go, oh, hang on, that's not my autopilot mode. Something's come up there. I have to think about this. So make it harder to do the things you want to stop. So if you want to stop a habit, make it harder for yourself to do it. So there was actually a really good and opposite example of that, actually, thinking about this friction still. So if you want to stop a habit, you make it harder, which is vice versa. Friction is such a good one. Wendy Wood, if anybody's interested. But the opposite of that is creating a habit. So you want to make it easier to create a habit. If you want to stop a habit, you make it harder. If you want to create a habit, you make it easier for yourself. So say you want to start running, or you want to, I don't know, go to the gym, whatever it is. You want to make it as easy as possible to get out of bed in the morning and go if you're going in the morning. And this is actually something I've practiced. I used to do this a lot. I used to put my running kit out the night before, every single part of it. So socks, sports bra, literally everything, pair of shoes, was all by my bed. My alarm went off, and I literally made a beeline for those clothes, put them on. And before I knew it, I was in my running gear, and I was kind of like, oh, well, I've kind of already done the hard bit of getting up and getting dressed. I'm now going to get out the door. So that is a really interesting way of like making it easier. And actually, Wendy Wood, if you're interested, she describes an example, or there is an example about habits. Sorry, I don't know whether it's her, but in the podcast, there's this really great example of an organization wants people to use the stairs more. So just trying to help with people's habits. They still have a lift, but they've hidden the lift. So if you've ever noticed, you walk into a building, there's usually a lift straight in front of you. They just hid it round a corner and put the stairs straight in front of people that walked in. And those who could walk up the stairs ended up walking straight up the stairs because it was their brains, there was friction added, right? Their brains were having to go, oh, wait, where's the lift? And locate the lift rather than just going straight, rather than just going straight into the lift. So what they did instead was they just went straight, but instead they ended up going up the stairs. So it's really interesting to just understand how your brain works as well with this. And with that, so we've got those four tools there. So breaking it down, shrimps, not elephants. Accountability. So get your people involved, your trusted people. Celebrate your wins, big wins or really tiny wins. And it can be anything, any type of celebration, even just having a bit of love for yourself, or you can go out and buy yourself something. And then the final one is friction, making it easier or harder, depending what you're doing, to create or shape those habits. Oh, cool. Sorry, that was a lot of information. So I hope that's been helpful. Danny, are you there? Hello.
On cue, look. Thanks,
So,
Rachel. I think that was really, really useful. And I think the friction is not something that I'd thought about really before, but I definitely I lay my clothes out the night before as well. I have to get up early, and
it's a good
having
one,
it
isn't it?
trying to fumble around trying to find something in the dark, it makes it very, very difficult to get out.
I know,
And
and it's
I
just
become very unpopular as well if I'm turning lights
no,
on.
that's true actually. And I don't know about you, but if I do that, I know the thought in my head, if my clothes aren't out, the thought in my head is, oh, well, I've got to find everything. I don't know where everything is. It's probably in the wash, like I'm not gonna go. That's genuinely what, and I talk myself out of it. So yeah, let me know if there's any more questions. I think Danny was
Yeah.
just gonna let me
If
know.
there's any other questions that people want to ask away, because we'll hold on to Rachel for a couple more minutes. But otherwise, I have a question about setbacks, really. You know, if you've got your brilliant goal and you're really motivated and dedicated towards it, and then actually you misstep, you don't, you miss a milestone, or actually it's just not working for you. How do you kind of pick yourself up at that point?
That's a great one, and let's be honest, like that's something we all face.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Millie, that's kind of a similar question. So either a motivation slump or kind of a bit of a setback. And the best, so the first thing is, and it's so much easier said than done, trust me. I do know this. But the first thing is to just be compassionate with yourself. So please try not to beat yourself up, because it kind of goes back to this positive thinking. If you're going to beat yourself up, you're already bringing kind of a negative perspective to the experience, and your likelihood to then step back in is going to be lower. So for some people, a bit of failure really gets them going, but actually for many, myself included, it doesn't make me feel all that great. So if you get a setback, the first thing I would really try and get yourself to do is just be like, do you know what? I've done really well up till now. This is hard. If it wasn't hard, if completing goals were easy, literally everybody would be completing their goals. So like, it is hard, and one setback is not going to dictate your whole experience. And the second thing is, I would look at it really objectively. So rather than getting, again, this is easier said than done, but with practice, and especially if anybody does mindfulness, actually, it's a really good tool to be able to step back from your own thoughts. But if you find yourself getting really frustrated with yourself, just see if you can take a step back and look at your goal and what you've achieved so far. Quite objectively. So look at it from somebody's perspective who doesn't know you, and just describe what's happened, because you'll probably find that actually, you'll be surprised at how much you've already done. And if you've done a month of new habits, that's amazing, right? You have reprogrammed your brain for a month to do something differently. That's no mean feat. And you'll probably find that if you look at your kind of setback or your low motivation from a sort of third person standpoint, that they're going to see it as just a very minor thing. And if you can step back like that, then you're going to be like, oh, actually, that doesn't, that's okay. I can actually do this. And just start afresh tomorrow. Really try and get that kind of practice in of being able to step away from the because I know it can be quite emotional and it can be upsetting, like knowing that you've maybe lost your motivation. You think, oh my god, I'm not going to achieve it, or maybe you have had a setback, but none of that defines where you're going. Okay, so again, a little bit of a mindfulness thing here. It's great to look at the past and see where we've come, and it's great to set goals and look at where we're going, but also like be in the moment, like realize that where you are now is further than you were before, and you've still got all this opportunity to move forward as well. So I hope that sort of answers it.
I heard something quite valuable once. It was like, actually talk to yourself like you would talk to your best friend,
Yeah,
that you'd never be as critical of somebody else, especially somebody that you care about, as you are to yourself. So
yeah,
actually, if you were telling yourself this story of, the situation that you find yourself in,
yeah,
you would probably be quite kind to yourself,
yeah.
and like you said, point out that it is hard and that you have done really well so far, and that it is just a temporary setback.
Yeah, and I think, nothing defines you. Like, your brain is so malleable. Yes, it might be a little bit difficult, but you are not fixed. Our brains are designed to change. And I think, this talking to your best friend is a great example. And somebody else suggested something that was suggested to me was to think of your 6-year-old self, and just like give her a bit of a cuddle. Like, you're doing really well.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. I think we all need a little bit of a cuddle now and then, don't we? There's another question here from Lisa about food cravings. Is this about friction again, do you think?
So yeah, great one. So a little bit of friction, yeah. So this is interesting actually, and I'm not like not a nutritionist or anything like that, but I think if you're looking at this from a habits perspective, definitely so going back to my example, like I I have a bit of chocolate every evening. Like if I wasn't, I could see that as a craving, but actually it might just be my habitual nature. Like I know I usually go into the kitchen around like 7:30 and grab a bit of chocolate.
So you're
So
overdue, Rachel. We're holding you back from your chocolate.
see, this is friction. But also it might be really interesting for you to just so again, a little bit of mindfulness here. So it's coming up more than I thought it would. For you to sit there, and when you get a food craving, just ask yourself, like, just get a bit curious. Be like, why am I craving that? And because sometimes, like, our brains really link experiences with feelings and sensations. So if you know that, so actually it's probably similar for me and my chocolate is like I like to sit in front of the TV and just snuggle down with a bit of chocolate, and that for me isn't kind of about the chocolate, it's actually more about the habit and the experience. So just get a little bit inquisitive about like why it's there, what are you feeling, and then maybe you can actually figure out, like, I don't know, for example, you might have a glass of wine while you're in the bath. It's not that you actually want the glass of wine, it's actually that you enjoy the having the bath experience, just as a random, I don't know, top of my head example. So yeah, get a little bit inquisitive about why it's there, and then yeah, if it's friction, pop that friction in.
Lovely, thank you. Rachel said she's in earlier to what you're talking about. Her yoga mat's going down on the floor the night before now. So there you
Yes,
go.
awesome. Mine's actually, well, apart from the fact I'm a teacher, but mine's actually always out. It just
Permanently
makes
down.
things easier. Yeah, cool.
Lovely. I think that is all the questions. But if anyone is watching this on catch up and has questions, then they can contact you, Rachel. Is that right?
That is absolutely right. Yes. So if anybody would like to know more about anything I've said, there's been quite an information dump, so I hope it's all been helpful. But there's also kind of a lot more behind it, obviously. So a couple of things from me. So I am a qualified coach. Just kind of what I do is my bread and butter is help people achieve their goals. So if you do want a little bit of one-to-one work to just work through some of the goals that you're looking at, then I think have we got a little cool contact details? So I've got Instagram and Facebook.
I'm
You can
just
find
waiting
me.
to see which one you're going to go for. There we go.
I know. There
Instagram.
we go. So you can also find me
Facebook.
just by Rachel Thomason Wellbeing on Facebook or Instagram, and also my website, which should link to, there you go. So it's my website there, and there's a link to obviously my email address on there at the top, I think, as well. And just for you, if you found this really helpful and you just want a kind of reminder, there is a free PDF guide available on my website. So if you just scroll down to kind of midway, you can download that there to just run through basically what we've been through today. There's a couple of extra bits as well in that. And then finally, there is a goal, I think it's a goal achievement meditation available for you right now through the Healthy You Virtual Festival. And Danny, I believe it's on YouTube at the moment, is it?
Yeah, so it's on our Get Moving Cambridge YouTube channel. You'll be able to find it.
Perfect. And that's just a really nice way, to kind of have some you time, some nice mindful time, but also just thinking about how, like, visualizing you getting to your goal. So, yeah.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're so welcome. It's been really nice. So yeah, if Lisa's been doing my mindfulness sessions, lovely. So yeah, feel free to contact me, anyone. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Danny.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.